सदारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. I'll begin to share the screen. And I believe we were on verse 3 last time. So if someone would like to volunteer, feel free and we'll... Sure, go ahead. So verse 3 of the Gita Dhyana Shloka.
So it will start from Krishna as a wish fulfilling tree.
Yeah. You can read the shloka though.
Okay. Prapanna parijataya stotra vetraika panaye jnanamutraya krishnaya Gitamritaduhe namaha. Unto the one who is the wish fulfilling tree for those who have surrendered, who has the whip in one hand and the symbol of knowledge in the other. And see your screen got unshared. Who has the whip in one hand and the symbol of knowledge in the other, who milks the nectar that is the Gita. And to that Krishna, my salutations. Krishna is a wish fulfilling tree. In the third verse, Lord Krishna is likened to a wish fulfilling tree said to be found in heaven. Whatever you wish, you will whatever you wish for while sitting under this tree immediately appears in front of you. Krishna is this wish fulfilling tree for those who have surrendered unto him. To them, he is the giver of everything. Krishna's control. In one hand, Krishna is holding the whip with which he drives the horses. His other hand assumes the gesture symbolizing knowledge. This means that Krishna does not give up the job of charioteer when Arjuna wants to be taught. Right in the middle of the battlefield, when Arjuna wants to know, Krishna assumes the role of a teacher. Knowing fully well that Arjuna would fight, Krishna did not drop the whip. Arjuna dropped his bow and arrows, but Krishna kept the whip in his hand. He loosened the reins for the interim, but everything was under control. Unto the one who thus holds the symbol of knowledge, I offer my salutations.
Wonderful. So, this sort of continues from the theme that we looked at the last time, which is that the buddhi. Anyone remember the long discussion we had about the mana and buddhi and how to distinguish the two? So, just to recap, because I see Pratya Binyaji, I think you just recently joined, so welcome. So, the buddhi has to be alert. It has to be available, and it cannot be something that's there in the background, because ultimately the buddhi is the function of the antakarana. The antakarana, just as a recap, is what you call the mind. The mind has four aspects, four functions to it, not four parts, but four aspects to it, which is the manaha, buddhi, ahankara, chittani. So just a quick recap there as well, that the manaha is essentially the seat of perception. The buddhi is the decisive concluding faculty. The memory function that we invoke. So all of this is really grounded the organs of knowledge, which are the Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, which are the five organs of knowledge that we have. When they are operational, that time the manaha sitting behind these organs these organs of knowledge. That is where the perception of these sense inputs takes place, and then ultimately you have the buddhi, which makes sense of what the senses reveal. Okay, so the buddhi is the sense making faculty. What something is, or how you identify something, how you understand something, how you rationalize, how you are able to distinguish, categorize, classify. All of these things are the buddhi. And so the buddhi has to be backing the mind at nearly all times. Now, which is not to say that there's a lot of mind control, because Pujya Swamiji was never in favor of using the word uh, control in the sense of being controlling. Control means that availability. So, whenever he used the word control, that's how he's meaning it, and that's how he explains it in other, especially in the Tattva teaching. I think Pujya Swamiji explained it very well. That this availability of the mind is what we are trying to arrive at. So, what I mean by that is the mind's job is to be a monkey. The mind is a monkey. It is an animal. It runs from here. It runs from here to there. It goes all over. Okay, there's no need to stop the mind or to stop the thoughts and all. This is all neo-Buddhist, neo-Vedantic uh, stuff that has sort of polluted the discourse of Vedanta, where a lot of emphasis is being given on how to control one's thoughts. But suppose one begins to control the movement of the mind too much, what ends up happening is that uh, ultimately there will be a sort of suppression that takes place. And that suppression will lead to a very unhealthy explosion in some other area or avenue of life. So, this is why they say that one should not suppress the desires too much. You are supposed to um, allow it to play out, provided that the desire does not run counter to dharma. If the desire runs counter to dharma, then then also it's not about suppressing it, but it's about understanding its root cause, doing an analysis. Like, sometimes it could even take the form of a psychoanalysis, just to figure out, okay, I have this unhealthy proclivity, this addiction, whatever it may be, this infatuation, so on. Where is it coming from? How does it help? Where will it lead me? What will happen if I continue to succumb to it? So that kind of analysis will ultimately weaken the whatever it is that one is trying to break away from. But if one suppresses and one denies oneself the possibility of action or the possibility of pursuing, whatever it is that one cherishes in that moment, then it will create some psychosis, and it will backfire. It will backfire pretty badly. So okay, so Gita, for that reminder, that see, I forget where we are. Um, we did this shloka, so it's number 4, right? But okay, I'll just complete this particular train of thought rather. And so, in psychology also, usually what is recommended is that you just take a step back from where you are, or whatever led to a certain decision. Take a step back, try to figure out what is the need behind the need, what is the cause behind the effect, and then that will lead to some uh, emotional resolution, and ultimately, as one continues to reflect upon a given thing, it will start weakening its grip and it will lose its hold. But that reflection part is very important, because if the reflection is missing, then anything that one is trying to weaken will only get stronger, because the roots will get deeper. And so it is both a matter of knowing how to be diplomatic in dealing with our own mind. If it's a tiny enough thing, then uprooting it is not a problem. It's very easy. But if the roots are very deep, like an oak tree, then the problem is it's going to create a lot of soil erosion when you try to pull it out, and it's going to lead to a lot of scarring of the ground as well, here in the Antakarana. So one has to be careful. Any questions here about the Manaha Buddhi? If not, then we can proceed. But if there are any questions, feel free to raise. Okay. And as a reminder, did we do Shloka 4, or do we start with Shloka 4, if somebody remembers?
I think we have to start with Sloka
Start
4.
start four.
Acha. So, Shrikantji, if you would like to continue.
Okay. सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्. Sarva Upanishadah, all the Upanishads, Gavaha, cows, Gopala Nandanaha, joy of cowherds, Dogdha, one who milks, Parthaha, Arjuna, Vatsaha, calf, Sudhihi, one whose mind is clear, Bhokta, enjoyer, Mahat Gita Amritam, great, invaluable nectar of the Gita, Dugdham, milk. The Upanishads are the cow, the joy of the cowherds. Krishna is the one who milks. Arjuna is the calf. The one whose mind is clear is the one who drinks the milk. And the invaluable, timeless Gita is the milk. The first two verses praise the Gita and Vyasa. Because the Gita was taught to Arjuna by Lord Krishna, he is praised in the third verse as the teacher of the Gita, as Gita Charya. In the fourth verse, the nature of the Gita and the Lord are both mentioned. This is the subject matter of the Gita and is being praised here. The Upanishads and the Gita as a cow and its milk. All of the Upanishads are taken into account in the Gita. To present the Gita as the essence of the Upanishads, a popular imagery is used in this verse. Here, the cow, a symbol of wealth and sanctity, is presented to represent all of the Upanishads. Together, they form the body of the cow. If the Upanishads are the cow, then its milk is the Gita.
So, here, this is something important to reflect upon. It is obviously a blessing for us to be born in the culture where the Bhagavad Gita is present, that, we sort of take it for granted because, I mean, who has not heard of the Bhagavad Gita? Even if you're a totally deracinated, secular, anti-Hindu, slogan chanting JNUite, at least you've heard the word Bhagavad Gita, right? It's not something that any Indian person is ignorant of. So it's a great blessing. But then there's also a problem associated with it, which is that because it is so popular, usually people who find their Hindu bearings in life say that, oh, I want to study Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism. How about I start with the Bhagavad Gita? So everybody begins with the Bhagavad Gita, and it's not a great place to start the journey. It's a great place to continue, but not a great place to start because it's not a very it doesn't have the same lexiconic approach as a Prakarana Grantha like Tattva. Like over here, if you look at a typical Upanishad, well, even the Upanishads are a little difficult depending on which Upanishad you start with. But let's say, you start with a Prakarana Grantha like Tattva or this Atmamoda or Viveka Chudamani, whatever it is. There is a certain karma in the way the subject matter builds up from, I won't say from simplicity to complexity, because that's again a very, I guess, Western centric way of understanding that, okay, you go from simple to difficult. It's not that kind of building up. Here, the building up isn't, and so there are certain basics which are unfolded. And then those basics are all sort of, adding pixels to the image. And the more pixels you add, the clearer is the of the image that you're looking at. So that is how Tattva Bodha or some other Prakarana Grantha typically operates, where the student is asking a set of questions that one needs to begin with. And then the teacher is responding to those questions, not assuming any background of the teachings. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is, I'm not saying that Krishna Bhagavad assumes, but he's not teaching us, he's teaching Arjuna. And Arjuna is not a, dolt out of the blue. He's a great person. He's a great Yoddha, and he's born in a great family, and he has exposure to a lot of great things also. So he's not a complete novice. And so, and also Arjuna's questions are not meant to proceed in some krama, but they are more oriented towards his own personal psychology. It goes through the things that he is dealing with, the struggles that he has, the confusions that he has. And so he's sort of, it's like, if you watch a movie, or if you, not a movie, but there are some movies that way, but dreams also, right? It's in media res. There's a literary concept or construct there, which is that you start in the middle of the story. You don't start at the beginning. It's not like, this Do Re Mi. Very, Ambika was watching Sound of Music last week. In fact, we all, it's a yearly ritual for us. And I would be surprised if somebody doesn't know the song Do Re Mi. Everybody's heard of it, right? Julie Andrews, beautiful. What a nice, lovely song. But then, the lyrics goes, let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. And when you sing, you begin, no, when you read, you begin with ABC. And when you sing, you begin with Do Re Mi. And so, it's kind of like laying the foundations. And that's what the Prakarana Granthas are a bit like. Because here, through those Sapta Swaras, you're teaching the foundation of music, you're teaching the foundation of lyrics, all of these things. And then you start adding lyrics into those particular notes. And then, it becomes a song. It's beautiful. And so, the Prakarana Grantha is a little bit like that, which is that, it holds your hand and it gets you started from the very beginning. And then there's nothing left to assume. You are there, and the teacher is holding your hand and guiding you through that journey. Bhagavad Gita a little bit more abstract. So this is a long way of saying, if you want to start your journey in the study of Vedanta, don't begin here. This is probably like third or fourth or fifth down the list. Okay, any questions here as we go down further? Okay, then if you can continue reading.
The Upanishads and the Gita as a cow, and Krishna as the milkman. Who is the milkman? Nowadays, milking is all done by machines, but previously it was not easy to coax milk from a cow. The cow has its own moods and will not yield for just anyone. In this verse, Krishna is acknowledged as the best milkman. Born into the family of a milkman in a cowherd community, Krishna did not need to be taught how to milk a cow. Even from cows with empty udders, Krishna was able to get milk. Just as he could get milk from a cow, Krishna is able to milk the Upanishads. He knows exactly what the subject matter is. In fact, he is the subject matter. Since he knows the subject matter so well, he is the best one to milk the Upanishads. Milk is the essence of the cow, in that many things a cow eats are all converted into milk. In the same manner, the Upanishads talk about a variety of topics, but it is all converted into the milk of Vedanta Shastra, Brahma Vidya, and Yoga Shastra. These are the two most important topics in all of the Upanishads. They form the milk, and there can be no better milkman than Krishna.
So this is very beautiful. So it talks about how the Gita is a condensation of the wisdom of the Upanishads. But if I have to extrapolate the same theme further, then you can see the Brahma Sutra is the ghee that you extract from this milk also, because the Brahma Sutras are even more abstract. In fact, it's the last place that you'll go to at the very end of your Vedantic study. So um, it's like once you do Brahma Sutra, it's very hard to go back to anything else, just because it is so in depth and so rigorous. I haven't done it personally myself, but I've heard a short course of it taught by Puju Samji. I think he had conducted about 30 or so odd classes on the Brahma Sutras, and my goodness, it is profound. And I attempted, at different times to read the introduction to Brahma Sutra. It is called the Adhyasa Bhashya. And just to understand the introduction itself, like I would say, it's a few scales about my own ability. Honestly, like it's just very, very deep, very profound, very rigorous. A lot of logic is used. A lot of things have to be remembered. And so at some point I said that, you know what, I'll come back to the Brahma Sutra once I have a more robust understanding of like some of these other Prakarana Granthas, Brahma Sutras and such. So anyway, I just wanted to extend that theme that there is a certain order in which one studies these things, and one cannot haphazardly jump from here to there. Okay. Yeah, we can proceed.
Lord Krishna as Gopalanandana, the joy of cowherds. Lord Krishna here, Lord Krishna is referred to here as Gopalanandana, the joy of cowherds. The word go in Sanskrit not only means cow, it also means words and earth. The one who gives meaning to all of these words is Lord Krishna, and the one who nourishes and sustains the earth with life is also Lord Krishna. In this verse, he is also referred to as the milkman, who is the joy of all the cowherds because he is the nourisher and protector of cows. Arjuna, the cause of the Gita. A cow produces milk for the sake of its calf. Here also, there must be a calf to generate the milk, that is the Gita. Arjuna Partha is the Vatsa, the calf, because he is instrumental in drawing the Gita out from Krishna. Just as the cow's milk is born for the sake of the calf, the Gita was born for the sake of Arjuna. Since the calf cannot take all of the milk produced by the cow, there is extra milk for the people. In the same way, Arjuna acquired the milk of the Gita, and others are also the partakers of it.
This is a very profound insight, not only in present in the Gita, but the way Puja Samji brings this out, which is, first of all, for us to receive something, we have to want it. And the cow is not going to spill milk unless there's a calf that is willing to drink it, who's looking for, who's asking for it. And so, if you see a cow and the moment like a calf approaches, the udders get filled with milk and it's ready for it, right? Because it's prepared. But if some random person comes, yeah, maybe not. You need to be very loving. You need to be very affectionate towards the cow for the milk to to be produced. And in the same way, if there is a prepared student, this is what you call adhikaratva. The preparedness of a student is what determines the words of the teacher that flow like this milk. So this is what Krishna Bhagavan is. He's a teacher, and even one's guru will only teach when they are faced with a prepared student who wishes to learn. You have to present yourself as somebody who's seeking this knowledge. So that seekership, that jignasa that Arjuna has, is what allowed the milk of the Gita to flow from Krishna Bhagavan's mouth. So that's a very powerful theme. And the other thing is just like a social commentary that it is of course a fact that cows are milch animals. So I don't know what I mean. I have obviously some idea of what happened here in the US, but in the last 15 to 20, I would say about the last 15 years, this whole veganism movement has gone through the roof. Okay, and there is some good and bad there also. And since it's sort of topical to the idea of cows and milk, I think I'll discuss it a little bit. So oftentimes there are these questions that people have, that should we exploit animals for human purposes? The things that we desire, the things that we want out of life, should we put animals at the receiving end? And of course, exploitation of any creature is not justified. It's not dharmic. It is a papa karma. But at the same time, what constitutes exploitation is a very different question. So what these vegans, when I came to the US, this was almost like 2 decades now. I was very impressed that there's a growing vegan awareness. Okay, because I have been vegetarian, like I grew up that way. And so when I saw that there are a lot of vegan restaurants and other things, just popping up, I thought that's a very good thing. But when I explored the philosophy that drives their narrative, it's actually a very bad thing. So this is something I wanted to deconstruct. Any takers? Anybody interested in getting that Vedantic take on this? Okay. So I'll share some more thoughts. So the vegans in US, and even in some cases the vegetarians in US, are not of the same flavor as the vegetarians that we are familiar with coming from India. We are vegetarians because we do hold ahimsa as a value that we wish to uphold. And over here, the end product or the final outcome may appear similar, but the cause is very different. The motivation for these vegan folks, abroad, is that they see everything through the oppressor and oppressed lens. That is their paradigm. Okay, blacks oppressed by whites, Muslims oppressed by Hindus, women oppressed by men, you know, gays, lesbians, bisexual, whatever, oppressed by straight people, this oppressed by that oppressed by this, rich oppressing the poor oppressed by the rich. And so the only thing that they can see is, okay, how do I create victimizers and victims in this world? That's all it is. And so what they say is animals are oppressed by humans. Now, is there complete untruth there? No, there is some truth to it, of course, because today, factory farming and, the dairy industry and all of these things are very cruel. I mean, it's cruel, it's heartbreaking, it is not acceptable. I mean, one would have to have a heart of stone to be okay with what's going on. But at the same time, to say that somehow any relationship that humans have with animals is an exploitative relationship is also very stupid stance. Okay, because as we, start asking questions, then one will see that then we should do away with the Vedas also. Why? Because when you offer ahutis into the Yajna Kunda, it's generating smoke and then it creates pollution and it's bad for the climate. So let's not do any yajnas anymore. In fact, let's doubly quit on yajnas, because when you offer ghee into it, ghee comes from cows. And you have to offer ghee because you cannot offer margarine or anything of that sort, obviously. So let's do away with all of these things. Let's stop doing Shiva Bhishekam, offering milk on the Shivalinga. Let's stop doing that also. In fact, let's stop being Hindus. So you see, this is an extreme. Some vegans will also say that how could Krishna ride on a horse? That's also exploitation. See, ultimately, somewhere you have to draw the line on stupidity and awareness. And over here, I think the culture has moved a lot towards stupidity and basically, this oppressor-oppressed mindset. And so it is a fact. It is a fact of life that cows, being a milk animal, will produce more milk than their calves are able to consume. And so cows were always seen as a source of milk for humans also, when the calf was well fed. Now that is the critical point. The calf has to be well fed. You cannot starve the calf and then feed the human, because that would be adharma. But if the calves are taken care of, and if there is any excess, then if it can serve and satisfy our human needs, then that is perfectly acceptable. In fact, it is healthy also. Because today, when you create a healthy and dharmic industry, and I say that as a dharmic industry because it's not a negative thing. Everything is economical. Today, you can't tell a farmer that, oh, you should starve yourself, but you should not sell milk and you should not do this, because then why will he have motivation to take care of the cow? Today, there has to be some economic motivation also. No, if you have a family member, if the family member is able to work, then you say, chal, job pe ja, job pe lag tu, ghar pe baitha mat. You say that to somebody who's bum, couch potato sitting in front of the television all day. Same way, like if you have a part of the family set as an animal also, you will also put them to work, making sure that you take care of their needs and they take care of your needs. It shouldn't be such that, oh, I have to only take care of the cow, but the cow cannot take care of me. Because that's not a relationship, that is one-sided. And so dharma is always a two-sided relationship. And this is something that these, nutcases who are social justice warriors and wokes and vegans abroad don't understand at all. They don't recognize the fact that today when you have a pet, you are taking care of the pet, but the pet is also giving you happiness. The only difference here is that the pet is not doing work for you because they've evolved to appear very cute. The cuteness is an evolutionary trait which makes you want to pet them because it actually makes you happy. But if the pet were actually hypothetically very ugly, then it would take a lot of motivation on your part to actually take care of it. In fact, you would probably not have a pet then. So human beings are driven by selfishness, and I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm just saying that it is a biological fact of life, and it is important for one to have a two-way relationship even between animals and humans. And so this is not exploitative at all. So if you ever come across some Hindu who says, "Oh, I'm a vegan," ask what that motivation is, and more often than not, 90% of the time, you will find that the motivation is rooted in wokism, not in dharma. Now, Here is another point to make note of as well. The ratio of people who consume milk to the ratio of cows and the well-being of the calf is extremely low, especially outside of India. Which means my recommendation typically is have have let's say cut down your milk consumption largely to the extent that you can. Just have a template in your mind that okay, here is how much excess milk a cow produces. These are the number of dairy producing cows that we have in the US, and these are the number of adults who live in the US. And create that ratio and come up with some mathematical model where you can justify that okay, maybe I should be having this much milk to justify an equitable relationship with these animals. See, that's a very nice thing to do because we have to worry about the environment, we have to worry about the people that and the creatures that we live with as well. So this is the way to approach, and it's not just about milk, but this is the way to approach any dharmic consideration. It could be environmental concerns. Somebody will say that, "Arey, I don't want to, use a car anymore." Nothing wrong with that. Maybe if you want to walk to the grocery shop, which is just down the street, that is admirable. But if somebody says that human beings are a curse on the planet and we should not produce babies because all we've done is destroy the planet since the time human beings have evolved into humans, then they are also idiotic only. Because self-preservation is a very, very important dharma. I mean, self-preservation is the first dharma, and everything else comes after that only. Every creature has a basic instinct to survive. If I do not wish to survive, I am suicidal. And when one individual is suicidal, you will take care of them. But when the whole culture becomes suicidal, now you're screwed. There's nothing you can do about it. And this whole woke culture has become cancerous. It's a cancer. It is a mutation of the left. The left used to stand for something good once upon a time. Okay, I'm not talking about this whole history with Marxism and the Russian Revolution. All of that is garbage. But I'm saying that the democratic left in the US, let's say in the 1960s, the 1970s, they stood for something that was relatively moderate. They did not want to see people oppressed. They did not want to see racism. They did not want to see women discriminated against. They cared for society as a whole, and they got a bit fed up of the hardcore capitalistic only profit mindset of the Republicans or the right. But now what has happened is instead of this charitable, virtuous approach to politics and to society, so social welfare and other things, what the left has morphed into is a self-loathing, angry, vile, bitter uh, enemy of itself and others. That's what it's become. And this is all due to wokeism because they have internalized this victimized victim mentality, and not all of them have. The problem is that there are many foot soldiers, but the people who are in power do exactly what the game is. Because the fact of the matter is key, this whole notion of Krantikari, to be a revolutionary, is a very, for lack of a better word, it's a very sexy thing to do. Okay, every person who's a teenager wants to rebel. They want to be a freedom fighter. They want to break the chains of society. They want to break free. Okay, there's a nice song from the 80s by Queen, I Want to Break Free. That's what everyone is looking to do. And when you give them this drug of so-called freedom, not in the way that we are thinking of moksha, which is the only real freedom really, but when you give them the freedom drug, that the only way to be free is by turning everybody else into an enemy and holding yourself to be virtually superior and more virtuous and a greater and a better person than everybody else, that this high-handedness of the left is what has mutated into the disease called wokeism. I don't know, these days the algorithm on YouTube is extremely good at speech detection. So I can bet you that this video is going to have far fewer views than typical because I've criticized all of the things that YouTube stands for, essentially, Google stands for. Once upon a time when Google was founded, their company motto was "Don't be evil." But then, the thing that they've also morphed into is not admirable. And the reason I say that is because in 2015, now I'm going to get into this whole commentary on why this wokeism is so dangerous. Because it's going to help your kids one day. It's going to help my kids one day, and it's better that we know about it than not. Okay, because there are many, head in the sand type of ostriches who are in the Vedanta group also, who are hardcore leftists, but they also think that somehow it is compatible with dharma. So this is my, me getting on a soapbox, giving a little bit of a speech to explain why this is a very poor way to live. So in 2015, 14, whatever, I don't know, the dates don't exactly matter, but around that time period, there was an employee at Google. His name was James Damore. This guy essentially was privy to a hiring agenda at Google when this whole diversity, equity, inclusion nonsense started taking root in corporations. So what Google said is that we support something called women in STEM. Okay, I have a daughter, I have a wife. Of course, I'll support women in STEM. I don't want women to be unpad gavas. Obviously not. But then what they say is that somehow we will give a quota to women so that they will enter the technology field. Okay, now this is idiotic because a quota system of any kind is basically a path to disaster. Meritocracy means I am fit for the job. A quota system means somebody who is not necessarily fit but will fill a certain ratio is the one to whom we should give a job. So what Google did is they said that we want 50% hiring of women in STEM fields. Science, technology, engineering, maths. Excuse me. So what James Damore, who was a senior software engineer, high six-figure salary, very smart guy. He received this internal memo that was passed to Google, and he replied all. He replied to everybody. He said that, is it possible that maybe on average, given the biology and the mental state of women, they may not be as geared and interested in engineering as guys are? Is it possible? He asked that open question and he got fired. Okay, he got fired for asking a very reasonable question, which for all that I understand about people and psychology is true. If you look at, so let's analyze this a little further. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. We are getting out of Gita mode for now and we are getting into something else for a bit. Okay, so if you see, there is something called a normal distribution in statistics. We've talked about it briefly before, but I'll get into more detail as to why. When you see a normal distribution, almost everything that you encounter in life follows this normal distribution in nature. The heights of human beings, you'll find very few people who are in the 3 foot, 4 foot range. You'll find very few people in the 7 foot range, but you'll find a lot of people in the 5 foot range. Okay, lots of people because there's a bell curve and it's normally distributed around the 5'7" region because that's the typical. I'm talking about male height, typical male height, or women height is like 5'4" something. Now, what happens is this is true for many things such as IQ. It's true for weight. It's true for height. It's true for salary. It's true for many things. Now, if you take a normal distribution of two different categories, okay, some of you may enjoy this if you're into data. Manthan will, I think. So you have one cohort which is males. You have another cohort which is females. Now, when you take the entire population, but you split it into males and females, they will also have their own respective normal distributions. Agreed? So far, so good. But now what will end up happening is that there will be a certain area of overlap in the center because there are some women who are stronger than men. And there are many men who are stronger than women. So suppose a person says, what this implies is suppose a person says that on average, a guy is stronger than a girl. That is not a falsity. It is a fact because that is what averages are. Averages are averages across the entire population of that cohort. But now it would be incorrect to say every guy is stronger than a girl because you can have some girls who may be stronger than guys also. So whenever you argue with these leftists, they will always give you that niche example or that outlier example. So what ends up happening, okay, in this case, is that when you go to the tail end of the normal distribution, you will find an overwhelming representation by the cohort who is either shifted to the left or to the right, depending on what you're comparing. Does that make sense? So that means that if on average men are 20% stronger than women on average, I'm just throwing a number. This is not an actual stat, it's just a number I've made up. If on average men are 20% stronger physically than women, then the strongest men in the world will be significantly stronger than 20% than the strongest women in the world. Does that make sense? The difference at the edge will be extremely large. Now, here's another fact. Men on average are more violent than women. Agreed? Men on average are more violent than women. But the most violent men will be far more violent than the most violent women. And that is why you can't say that every man is a criminal, but 95% of the criminals in jail, murderers and whatever, will be men, and only 5% will be women. Because again, when you go to the extreme end, there is a large proclivity for it to be guys versus girls. So now let's tie these things a little bit together. Okay, when you think about an organization like Google or Microsoft or Apple or Meta or whatever, I wouldn't work for them, but Netflix, these places, they are very they are in high demand. There's more demand and there's a lot of supply. A lot of people want to work for these firms, and the firm is also these firms are also extremely selective about who they hire. Now think about it this way: when you have the best coders in the world, you think about Microsoft, you have Bill Gates, you think about Zuckerberg again, Meta, you talk about Apple, you have Steve Jobs. Typically what happens is guys are a bit obsessive. I'm not saying this is a good thing, this is both good and bad, but guys can be a bit obsessive when it comes to their careers and professions. And so what ends up happening is that rarely will you find a Marie Curie type of scientist. And more often will you find a person like Richard Feynman or Albert Einstein or Rutherford or whoever. Okay, there's a greater likelihood because of that obsessiveness when it comes to just like cutthroat competition and such. So when it comes to these companies, now they being the highest echelon of software engineering companies in the world, will try to hire from a pool of candidates that they think are the best fitted for the job, best suited for the job. And if they find that there's a preponderance of guys who apply compared to girls, because girls on average are more comfortable working with people, and guys on average are more comfortable working with things, which is also a fact. A thing is an object. It doesn't have emotions. Girls are more emotional, more sensitive, and that's not a negative, that's a good thing only. And guys on average are a bit more violent and a bit more compulsive is also a fact. Girls are a bit more neurotic and guys are a bit more destructive. It's also a fact. These are two different psychological traits, and there's nothing better or worse about it. It just stands for difference, because we are different, and different is not bad or good, it is different. So now what Google and these companies try to do is they essentially say, let's have more women fill these roles, even if not the same proportion of women are interested in this particular vocation. And that is why you'll see more people, let's say even within doctors, there will be more surgeons who are men. How often have you seen women surgeons? Very rarely. Heart surgeons, neurosurgeons, very rarely. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's rare. And how often do you see guys who are pediatricians? Relatively less compared to women. More women are psychologists compared to guys, because women like working in psychology. They like working with men, not men, but with people. Guys like working on things like organs, and they want to operate and they want to do those things. Okay, dentistry, you'll have an equal proportion because there's a bit of both over there. But when it comes to like hardcore surgery and such, you'll find a higher preponderance of guys. The point I'm trying to make is you cannot turn a profession in equitable. A profession has to be based on picking the highest performing members who are ranked at the very edge of that normal distribution. Whether it is a guy or a girl, you have to be blind to it. You have to wear blinders on and hire the best candidate regardless of the gender. And you should not assume that just because there are more guys who are filling this particular role, somehow there is a discrimination against women taking place. It's not. And that is the same reason you'll have more guys climbing your roof to to fix your roof, and you'll have more guys mowing your lawn, and you'll have more guys also cleaning your gutters. If you want equal representation, ask for more women gutter cleaners and ask for more women roof climbers and more construction workers and railroad workers. And more people who are building ships and more people who are basically in this building sewage pipelines, because those are also guys. But the place that these wokes ultimately go wrong, and they have a very wicked agenda, is that they want equal representation in the highest ranking, most well paid professions in the world, but not in the places where it is not well compensated. And that's a very screwed up way of equity, because that's not equitable at all. That is actually discrimination against men. And I'm saying this as a father of a daughter. So I have nothing to gain or nothing to lose. This is a social commentary on the fact that we are headed towards a very, very dire future if this mindset um, takes over India as well. And it is. Because unfortunately, from my contacts in India, I'm hearing a lot of crap about this whole diversity, equity, inclusion being part of the corporate hiring process in India as well. I had to quit my previous job, one of my previous jobs at least, because of one of these hiring mistakes that was made, and that our company was forced to double down, which is hiring somebody because of gender consideration and not because the person was good for the job. Long story, but this is my I suppose warning to folks who are listening, that if you don't pay attention to these things, it's going to ultimately infect your children, and they are going to turn out to be very weak minded, and they are going to look at themselves or somebody else as a victim. And the way you live life, the moment you start looking at somebody as a victim or as an oppressor, you cannot study Vedanta. Vedanta talks about everything being, Ishvara, everything is Brahman. There is nothing that is not divine. Everything is pure and everything is beautiful. But here you've created this high and low categorization, and then to create some equitable outcome, you try to put in reservations, and you fill in quotas. It doesn't work that way. And where this ends up. It sounds like, okay, this is just an employment issue. It's not. It's a social issue. It's much greater than employment, because today we have in our close family circles children of who have been to college, who've been exposed to these things, very cultured, very traditional upbringing. Today they are questioning their gender. Today they are considering sex change surgeries. Today they are questioning their sexuality, whether they should end up with a man or a woman. They are not sure of that as well. Today they are mutilating their body parts, not comfortable with the gender that they are born into. Today they are trying hormone therapies. They are causing irreversible damage to their bodies because of this ugly woke ideology that has completely taken. And it is a mind virus. It is very dangerous. It is very hard to cure. And the worst part is that today, a lot of Hindus are still living in the 1990s. Idiotic. Okay, more soapbox speeches. I'll share why, because I'm encountering this on a day-to-day basis almost. You go to the library and there are books for preschool children which talk about how children should become allies for feminists. They are trying to convert my kids into feminists. No, I don't allow that. They will try to convert your kids also. The only problem here is that I am a little hyper alert about these things because I know what's going on. And a lot of parents are oblivious to it, and they don't think that there's a problem there. They think that the kids will grow out of it. They will not grow out of it, they will grow into it. And the deeper it takes root, it will rot their minds, it will corrupt their way of thinking. Okay, so what? I forget exactly where I was going with this, but this is a very deep problem. So that's all I have. Any thoughts? Any discussions? Questions on this? See, when madness becomes institutionalized, it's very difficult to see that there is something wrong. It's like you repeat a lie 1,000 times and it becomes truth. It becomes accepted. It becomes the norm. The problem here, why I'm so vociferous about it, and why I'm, some may think I'm making a big deal out of it, but I'm not. The problem is that when you normalize this behavior and when you normalize this way of thinking, one day will come. The day will come when we will no longer be able to see that there is a problem. And when you can't see that there's a problem, oh my goodness, we are stuck. Because you need somebody who's going to, you need somebody who's chicken little over here, right? That the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Somebody needs to be the herald. Somebody needs to call it out that there is some nonsense happening. Somebody needs to say the emperor is wearing no clothes. And we don't have enough people. And unfortunately, the Hindus who have moved to the US have fallen hook, line, and sinker for this propaganda. I've spoken this about this earlier as well, that even in these whole environmental initiatives that companies do, it's part of that whole construct. So because there's a social element to it, right? Like if it's only environment, okay, no problem. But when you have a social commentary that's associated with it, that's what I have a problem. Because as parents, we are responsible for the upbringing of our children. It is we who have to shape their narrative and their value system. And that is why we find movies, whether it's The Sound of Music or whether it is some beautiful, film from the 1950s you have, or the 30s, like Wizard of Oz. There was a clear demarcation of roles and expectations in society. If you look at The Sound of Music, the Captain Von Trapp was an archetypal masculine figure. Maria, beautiful, beautiful woman, was the archetypal, feminine figure. And then the children were the obedient kids, and there was also some naughtiness. There were also some streaks of, being mischievous and playful. And there was lightness, and there was music, and there was love, and there was harmony, and there was patriotism. All of these things, they resonate with us. They sort of tug at the heartstrings because there's truth in all of it. Now compare that to a narrative which says a man is no longer a man and a woman is no longer a woman because you can be who you want to be. And this is the ultimate Jiva Shrishti. Okay, now I'm coming back full circle to Vedanta. Ishvara Shrishti is the reality as Ishvara has ordained, as Ishvara has manifest. Jiva Shrishti is me superimposing my fantasies, my fictional understanding of reality upon Ishvara Shrishti. Ishvara has made me who I am. There is a certain biology that's associated with my identity. I am trying to play God by saying that this identity that has been given to me is wrong and I will question it. Now, does this mean that there can be no gender identity at all that is outside of the norm? No. Because in our culture, in our tradition, there is a third gender, the Putsaka. That is why you have this whole, Pullinga, which is masculine, Strilinga, which is feminine, and the Putsakalinga, which is the catch-all. Right? It is the in between. It is the one where you don't neatly categorize. But now, is it conceivable that you'll have a society where every single person is potentially an Apunsakalinga? No. It is a rarity. It is meant to be an exception. It is not meant to be the norm. But when you turn this whole thing about, oh, you should question your gender and everybody should question their gender, and celebrities are dressing their boys as girls and girls as boys, and you are playing around with their psychology at such a formative uh, age, you are actually messing about Ishvara's order. And they will grow up to be so confused. And worst, here's the worst part, okay? If a child confides in their teachers in certain school districts that I don't know who I am because of this whole propaganda that they've been exposed to, the teachers have no obligation to inform this to their parents. And if a parent interjects in between, the parent can go to jail. In other words, the state has more control over a certain child's sexuality in certain districts than a parent does. And they can also keep it from the parent. And if the parent is too vociferous about these matters, then the state service can come and take away the child as well by deeming the parent unfit. Okay. So I'm not saying this is going to happen to us tomorrow. It's already happened in some areas. But I'm saying this is a reality that our children and their children may one day have to deal with on a regular basis. And if we don't speak up and if we don't stand for what's right now, we are creating a very poor future for ourselves. So wokeism is a disease. That's all I wanted to say. It's a mind virus. Any thoughts, or shall we close off for the day or night for some of you?
What's a good way to inoculate ourselves from this
Very
virus?
tough. Very tough. I'll speak about some not so good ways. One not so good way is thinking that Vedanta is going to cure these problems. That somehow if I study Vedanta, somehow if I study who am I, Brahma Vidya, Atma Vidya, I don't need to worry about these things. Okay. I directly point at students of Vedanta who have this mindset. कि हमको क्या लेना देना? This indifference that the functional reality may go to hell, why do I care? I just have to consume myself as a sadhaka. That is not sadhana. So that is one way it will not work. The second way it will not work is a lot of Indian people. I hate to target Indian people, but I am an Indian and therefore I have full authority to do that because I'm not a self-hating person. I'm saying this objectively. Indian people, when they move abroad especially, unlike Jewish people, take Jewish people for instance, they have an identity. Today Jews will stand for Israel. Hindus will not stand for Kashmir. Hindus will not stand for Hindus being slaughtered in Bangladesh. Hindus will not stand for the Hindus who are being sort of, pushed in the background even in their own country. Hindus, when they move abroad, they love to fit in. They like to become one with everybody else, okay, in the wrong way. So what they end up doing is they lose their identity and they become very indifferent. The problem that Hindu people have, Indian people generally, but Hindu because I'm a Hindu and because I care, is that Hindus, when they come to the US, they have a very self-centered attitude. It is all about me, myself, and my family also. Okay? Family matlab kya? I sent my kid to a good school, my child gets good grades. Oh, let's enroll them in a spelling bee. I'm not going to get on the soapbox on spelling bees, but please don't do that. It is the most worthless activity you can engage a child in. There are hundreds of better things you can do, but don't do spelling bees because the words in spelling bees will never be used. I think I have a decent vocabulary and I can't understand most of those words because they are complete worthless. So that is not a good idea. Third is, so as Pratibhagnya ji says, that, one should have some righteous rage that is well directed towards a dharma. In the Shri Rudram, Manyava Utavata Vishave Namaha, okay, Bhagwan, please direct your anger away from me, not towards me. What the prayer is that Ishvara also has Rajas Guna. See, we are endowed with three gunas. Vedanta will tie in thoda bit. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Tamas matlab, you go to sleep, you are a lazy bum. You just want to sit in front of the TV or you want to sleep all day and you want to basically be unavailable to serve any duty. That is the tamasic person. Who is a rajasic person? Who goes about like breaking things. Okay, hyperactive and who goes about, let's say a workaholic. All of these people are rajasic. Who is a sattvic person? A well-balanced person. Okay, sattva doesn't mean that I meditate all day. Sattva means availability of the mind, available to everything that you are engaged in. That is a sattvic person. If you have to fight a war like Arjuna, fight with sattva and rajas backed by sattva. If you have to go to sleep, tamas backed by sattva. Why? Because pleasant dreams. You'll sleep because the sleep is pradhana, the tamas is pradhana, but you'll have nice dreams. But if you have a lot of tamas only, then you'll have nightmares. And if you have a lot of rajas, you'll have some very uh, uh, embarrassing dreams. So these things happen, okay? So what I'm trying to say here is that a Hindu has to have a certain bit of passion about the causes that he's fighting for, knowing that these are not for my sake, they are for the sake of Ishwar. I am here as playing a certain role. I'm put here to protect the cause of Dharma. I'm put here to uphold the cause of Dharma. And I'm meant to uphold this cosmic framework, this cosmic blueprint that Ishvara Shashti is all about. And whenever this blueprint starts getting corrupted, and through environmental spillage, it may be pollution or whatever it is, or this the intoxication of the mind and of corrupt ideas that become widespread in society, I have to do what I can to put a stop to it. That passion that is backed by a dharmic mindset is very important. Okay, then education. Go out and study. Read. Read books by Jonathan Haidt. Read books by Douglas Murray. He's a famous British. I don't know what he is, author, I suppose, but he's many things, right? He's a debater, he's an author, he's an orator, multiple hats he wears. Listen to Douglas Murray speak about wokeism. Go listen to John Anderson in Australia speak about wokeism. Listen to, read books on postmodernism. Figure out why postmodernism is a disease that is basically fueling the rage of wokeism. Try to figure out how postmodernism plays into racism. Not racism, sorry, wokeism. Try to figure out how Marxism goes into postmodernism. Try to create a mental map of all of these constructs that are out there in the world to figure out which pass the test of dharma and which are complete garbage. And when you begin to do that, you will become not hypersensitive, but you will become sensitive. You'll become sensitive to the issues so that one day you can either guide your children or you can guide my children. Because we are all here to take care of each other. Today, I can't be entirely sure if my child will be safe with other Indian parents based on the beliefs that they have. When I'm not criticizing Arsha Vidya at all, but there is some disease that is there amongst these Vedanta students who have not understood Dharma well enough. So, for whenever I'm on social media, I see that a lot of children of my peers in Arsha Vidya who are somewhat elder to me, but a lot of their children have turned woke completely. They turn their, color their hair green. They'll wear that ugly piercing. I don't know what it is, but it's basically it connects. You know what I'm talking about? Not the one that you'll wear here or here, but the one that connects both these nostrils together. And it's a very woke symbol. So if you there's only one creature who wears that. Okay, a bull, not human beings. Human beings shouldn't wear that thing here because it's very ugly. And if you see a human being wearing this over here, you can be 95% sure that it's a woke. So you know that I should run away or I should at least not fall in love with this kind of a person in a relationship. So if you have children, just be careful. Okay. Be careful of flaming green color, pink color, purple color hair. In the 1980s, it was a different sign. Today is different. In the 1980s, it was cool because they were punks, okay? Punk rock and acid rock, and they were listening to good music back then. Now these are wokes. So today the hair color is a red flag. I know in my circle, usually, okay, the first sign that you need to watch out for is the things that they say. The second sign is the things that they do to their body. And usually it starts with the hair. It will start with just the borders, what is it called? Highlights, little bit of highlights of, green or pink or whatever. Then it will start getting covered all over. It's a slow progression like a disease. And then they'll color their whole hair that color. I have seen this to be true amongst multiple girls. Now, okay, another problem. This infects girls more disproportionately compared to guys. The reason is that girls are very nice. Guys are a bit rowdy and guys are a bit, in their own world. But girls are very sweet and they care about the world. Okay. Girls are a little bit more focused on have you eaten enough food? I'm a guy. If someone comes to my place, I'm not going to ask him, did you eat properly? I don't care. You come here, you eat, you go. And for all I care, I just want to have a nice conversation with you. My wife is going to check the plate. Oh, have some more. Please, please, please finish your food. Girls want to ensure that everybody, every member of society is well taken care of. Guys are okay with that. The guys will do their job and they'll serve society their own way. Because girls have a sentimental, dharmic, affectionate, sensitive, kind hearted side to them, they are the most easily corruptible because they can be uh, corrupted in their understanding of what it means to be equitable. They want everyone's plate to be full when they're eating, but they also want everybody's plate to be full in terms of fairness towards society, and their notion of what it means to be fair is corrupted by these wokes. And that is why girls, on average, end up becoming activists a lot more than guys. And guys are beta orbiters. You know, beta orbiting. Well, okay, that's a whole different thing. But let me close off recording for now, and then I'll get a bit more colorful here. Okay, about some concepts about guys, girls, and other things as it pertains to society. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. So one message I would give essentially is that if anybody wants to reach out, on YouTube or whoever is listening to this. And if you see that there's a concern in your family, that maybe it's your child or maybe it's your neighbor or some extended family member, reach out to me. I will get you in touch with people who have done a successful job fighting some of these things. Okay. Stop now before it gets too late. I will shut the recording. One moment.